In this video, we're going to take a look at my collection of Fate magazine. And before we begin, I probably should explain what Fate magazine is. It's still being published. It started in 1948, I believe, by Ray Palmer and Curtis Fuller. Ray Palmer, here's a book about him that I have, had been editor of Amazing Stories magazine in I guess the late 30s and into the 1940s, and most notably had sort of propagated the Shaver mystery with Richard Shaver, sort of this tale of an underground civilization. I remember Lemuria, I think was the title of the first story. It was presented in the science fiction magazine as if it was true, and I think this sort of is the genesis of Fate magazine in a way, because now in the late 40s, Ray Palmer starts Fate magazine, which is all purporting to be true stories. It's not a science fiction magazine, and they're true stories. This coincided with the Kenneth Arnold sighting of flying saucers in the late 1940s. And so there was a whole big flying saucers craze. So Ray Palmer jumped on that, and Fate magazine became a place where you could read about all sorts of weird stuff like that. True stories of the strange, the unusual, the unknown. So we're just going to take a quick look at my copies of Fate magazine here as I adjust the camera. And we're going to move these back so I can have more room here. Hopefully things don't start falling off. So like I said, this is the oldest issue of Fate magazine I have. This is May 1949. I think this is issue number 3. You can see some of the topics here. You know, the Negro in tomorrow's America is sort of a, obviously of interest because, at this time, what was being said back then. And you can see a lot of the stuff is very similar. There's a swastika. True mystic experiences, where readers would write in. A lot of this would be very similar to what the magazine would be like later. This has an awfully yellow tint in the camera, but I think that's just from the lighting above here. But here's the Negro in Tomorrow's America story, where basically the gist of it is because of interracial marriage and stuff like that, technically Americans are going to be a race of Negroes in another 100 years. So there's a nice, here's the table of contents. There's the I Remember Lemuria by Richard Shaver. And Ray Palmer's editorial. And a nice illo of Jack the Ripper there. Anyway, I gotta zip through these if I'm gonna get through all these issues in anything resembling decent time. So like I said, there's this book which I've not read in its entirety. I'm sort of just skimmed through bits of it about Ray Palmer, which I think I picked up on eBay for relatively cheap. And here's another issue of Fate magazine, which is kind of neat because it let me turn upside down. June 1952, March 1953. Now around this time, Ray Palmer left Fate magazine and started, this is July 1953, started a different magazine, which I'll show here in a minute. I think they reused this cover in a later issue, like around 2008 or so. They started reusing a lot of old covers, old 50s covers, rather than commissioning new ones. But, they'd have all these weird ads and stuff like that. I See by the Papers was just sort of a roundup of, weird items in the news. And January 1955. And April 1955. And July 1957. Okay, so before we go any further, I'm going to show some of those Ray Palmer spin-off magazines. So Ray Palmer left Fate magazine in, I think, 53. So this is, I think, is the 5th issue of Mystic, August 1954. And it's the same format, same type of thing. Venusians Walk Our Streets. That's the name of one of these stories. So it's Ray Palmer's editorial. So there are aliens among us. But anyways, Mystic eventually changed its name to Search magazine. This is from 1957, but it's the same format. July 1957. In Defense of Cats. This is from June 1959. This is a response to a previous article that was saying that cats were deadly or something like that. And this, I believe, is Ray Palmer's daughter posing with the cat on the cover. And Ray Palmer, by this point, he had kind of left science fiction. He had been an editor for Amazing, but now he was getting out of science fiction entirely. Now he was into all this fringe stuff. Here's an issue of Search from 1963. And at the same time, he was publishing Flying Saucers. I think Other Worlds was Ray Palmer's last science fiction magazine, and then it sort of morphed into Flying Saucers. Again, same type of thing. This is from 1962. And, it's sort of like crackpot literature, but there's this thing for chili seasoning, order from Ray Palmer. He also had a newsletter called Ray Palmer's Journal or something like that. That was ran until the 70s when he passed away, like 1976 or something like that. Anyways, okay, back to Fate. So this is April 1958 issue. Let me go into 1966. Cave in on a Batman stunt. This was like a little bit here. A little story at the, I think somewhere in here. I probably won't be able to find it. But they would have little stories at the end. And I think the Cave-In on the Batman set was about the TV show, the Batman TV show. But, was that it? Nope. Anyways, thing about TV newsman Pat Michaels, clairvoyant newsman. All right, September 1966. I don't have a complete collection. I don't even really want a complete collection. By this point, you can see the covers are just like text. There's a little illustration. This is 1981. These were ones I picked up on eBay later. 1980. That one's out of order. Now these ones here, I'm going to grab, are ones I bought at the time. So this is April 1985. And as you can see, the cover price then was only $1.25. Let me turn on light here. That might be a little easier to see. There we go. See if that makes a difference. So a local bookstore had Fate magazine, and I had heard about it. I was only 14 years old when this came out, but I had seen it on the shelf at a local bookstore, and I remember my dad talking about Fate magazine as something that had articles about UFOs and things like that. So I bought one, and really thought it was cool. I mean, it was all sorts of odd stuff in it, and you can see I checked marked certain things I wanted to refer to, which is unfortunate because I ended up like underlining with pen and things like that, kind of ruining some of these issues, but I didn't really think I was going to be collecting them or anything like that. They were just sort of interesting to read. Some of the things were more interesting than others. I tended to like, the stuff about ghosts or, UFOs or something like that, Bigfoot, rather than some of the like, mystical hogwash. But anyways, you can see it's pretty much the same format as before, as the older issues. Again, this is this October 1985. Do mammoths survive? Some of these headlines that would just kind of make you wonder. December 1985. January 6th, cover price still $1.25. This was at a point when a regular comic book like Spider-Man would cost 75 cents. So, today a regular comic book like Spider-Man is either $3.99 or $4.99. And Fate is still being published as far as I know, but I think it's more around $6 or $7, something like that. I think it's around $7 maybe. But anyway, so then the price went up next month. February 86 went up to $1.50. But at this point, I was kind of losing a little bit interest. So the next copy I bought wasn't until October 1988. Again, you can see I've checkmarked certain things. And they had a subscription offer, but for some reason I just didn't bother. All right. So at that time I didn't. These are ones for 1989. There's like a little subscription offer sheet. August 1989, September 89. I bought these on eBay. I've not even read these issues. And I've had them for years. I just haven't gotten around to it. This next one I did buy when it came out, June 1992. I saw this at a B. Dalton bookstore, if memory serves. This thing says Jeffrey Dahmer and the Aztecs, which I always thought was an odd title. By this point, I believe Phyllis Galdi became the editor. So Curtis Fuller was no longer doing it. Here we go. Phyllis Galdi. Greetings to all Fate readers from your new editor-in-chief. So she's been running Fate magazine ever since. But again, one of the weird things about Fate would be all those weird, advertisements for all sorts of oddball stuff. Like you used to see in like the Weekly World News and things like that. Here's Stanton Friedman, who's a UFO expert and colleague of Carl Sagan back in the day, I guess, or maybe they went to the same school or something. All right, and then one more digest issue that I'm going to show until I get to the big size issues. This is August 1993, The Psychic Side of Star Trek. All right, so then in 1996, I got a subscription to Fate magazine finally. But as you can see, now it's a big size magazine. The cover price here was $3.50, but when you got a subscription at that time, I'm going to set these digests down. The price was something like 24 issues for $33, something like that. So it was like less than not less than. It was like maybe $1.25 per issue or whatever the math is. Super cheap, very affordable. So I was like, well, how can I refuse? I'll get a subscription to Fate magazine. So this was the first issue that arrived in my mailbox. And it was pretty impressive. Still has the same columns and everything, though. I see by the papers. Same odd... In fact, it reminds me, there was a book that came, a pocket book. It's on the shelf over there. I probably should go grab it, just for the sake of completeness. But I'll go do that. There was a book that came with the subscription, a paperback book. And I'll grab it off my shelf of oddball stuff here. The Best of Hans Holzer, Book 1. So this came with a subscription, if memory serves. Oh no, it didn't, because that's somebody else's thing. Third printing, 1995. I think that's some sort of stamp from some book they must have gotten at a thrift store. Somehow I remember this, though, as being part of the subscription. So I may be misremembering it. But anyways, so that's sort of they did little books like this from the publisher of Fate magazine as promotional items for subscriptions and stuff like that. Although maybe you could buy them separately as well. I don't know. All right, so August 9th. I'm not going to show everything in here, and we're just going to run through the covers because we got a ton of magazines here. October 1996. So this is just like when the internet was starting to come around. You know, I got online I got home access to the internet in like February 97. So this is November 96. Although I did have an email address from school at that point. This one, the covers are falling off. But this is December 1996. January 1997. And this one was interesting. We're going to spend a little time on this one. February 1997. Move these a little bit out of the way. The Philadelphia experiment, a survivor tells his tale. There's a bit in here. They printed some articles about the Philadelphia experiment, but they have a sort of disclaimer from Lauren Coleman in here saying, reader beware, sort of letting them know that, you know, real researchers don't take the Philadelphia experiment seriously, that it's not real. But they printed it anyway, because I guess it just makes a good story. And speaking of which, this is one of my all-time favorite Fate stories. The Elves of Lily Hill. Imagine coming across a group of playful elves in a clearing in the woods. So this is all about a person who encountered elves. And here's like drawings of some of the elves that she encountered. And then here's like a guide, a step-by-step guide of people who would like to communicate with elves. Like, don't be rude, offer a polite greeting, you know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's very fanciful stuff. So, you know, at the time, I was like, well, this is really cool. And plus, it was super cheap. My dead aunt is alive. So this is like an unbroken run from whatever it started in, you know, the first issue I showed there of July 96 or whatever, to sometime in 2001 is when I kept renewing. Oh yeah, it was 24 issues for $33. I think that's what it was. So I kept renewing for like 2 years at a time. You know, but after a while, you kind of, you know, you're getting this in the mail every month, and you're not necessarily reading every article, and, you know, some of the stuff you're just kind of skipping, but, you know, it was still so cheap that it was hard to stop, you know. But especially, you know, the bargain off the cover price. This was during the period of like X-Files and things like that, where there was a lot of popularity of, you know, the paranormal. What's your fate to 98? Now, Fate magazine, here's 50 years of Fate magazine, March 1998. So yeah, it started in 1948. There's a cover of the first issue. You know, Fate magazine is a important magazine, but you know, for some readers, they may not, you know, some people may not have any knowledge about Fate magazine. Even fans of the paranormal, you know, they may not know anything about it. So it's kind of interesting that there's people who know about Fate, and then there's people who don't know anything about it, Fate, have never heard of it. So it's kind of a funny thing. I guess it's probably part of it, maybe if you were from a certain generation where you were aware of, you know, magazines that were being published at this time. there wasn't anything really like Fate magazine that was like available on the bookshelves, on a monthly basis as a magazine. So, or, like in my case, I'd heard about it from my dad. So, anyways, September 1998. Oh, this is October 1998. November 1998. December 1998. I'll just keep running through all these covers. I think there's a Fate magazine website that shows the covers. They have a cover gallery there. I can have a link to that in the description. But eventually, I got kind of disillusioned with Fate magazine because at this time, this was 1999. I'd been raised in a secular home and had a secular upbringing, so I was open to any sorts of reading about weird stuff. But after a while, when I became a Christian in 1999, I was a little more sensitive to some of the ways of people I felt were kind of maybe being misled. It was how sometimes people are concerned about misinformation sort of leading people astray. And so I got kind of turned off after a while by what I felt to be sort of like dangerous, not dangerous, but just sort of annoying that people were buying into stuff that I felt was, not good. So, so after a while, this is 2000, pretty cool cover there. Sort of like with that Lauren Coleman disclaimer, like reader beware. And I felt like it was just maybe they could have been talking about things that were real. This is a Robert Crumb cover that was sort of controversial at the time. In the letters pages, there's some complaints about it later. 2001, February 2001, March 2001, and this was the cover, the hidden history of Easter. This was the cover I think that just kind of disturbed me. That was like, it just seemed kind of like, why don't they just talk about, the real thing? So, Skunk Ape. So this was my last issue of the subscription, June 2001, and I didn't subscribe. That's the renewal notice. So let me move all these out of the way. So I let my subscription lapse, but that's not the end of my Fate magazines here, because later a friend of mine sent me a bunch. It went back to digest size shortly after that, and Phyllis Geldy became the publisher. So this is the January 2006 issue. And we'll go February 2006. April 2006. My friend Gavin Callaghan, I think, had an article or two in Fate magazine during this period. June 2006. July 2006. August. September. October. November. And you can get these on eBay, if you look around. In fact, some of the ones from the 50s, they're not as expensive as you might assume. Again, because there's people now, a lot of people don't know about Fate magazine. And April 2007, this one I started reading the other day, Lincoln's Murder. I was interested in these conspiracy theories about Abe Lincoln. airships of 1897. All right. Mothman, September 2007. Whoa. Let's set these aside. October 2007. November 2007. December 2007. January. George Washington. March. April. May. June. And August 2008. Then 700th issue, October 2008. And then these are the most recent ones I have: 725, 726, and 727. 727 be the most recent I have, which is from, what year is it? Does it say? Oh, it's a few years ago. You can see the subscription rates were there. You had the option of having the issue sent in an envelope for a little more, or not. But again, it's kind of crack pottery in a way. This article sort of in here sort of Sasquatch, a terrestrial, extraterrestrial. Some of this stuff, it just seems so, like, who would buy this? I wonder if that was there was one article in here that was really, it was probably this one. Wake up, come outside, a friendly female Sasquatch voice telepathed to my wife Kelly. We were camping in a wilderness area in Washington state, where a tribe of forest giants live. On the night of July 7th, 2014, the beings woke us up so we would have the opportunity to see a spaceship landing near our tent. However, we lingered while gathering our thoughts and missed what could have been a rare view of a spacecraft. We were fortunate enough to hear the craft and see the lights from the ship departing as we stepped out of the tent. The Sasquatch said that 3 of their people had been dropped off. After 57 years of research in cryptoanthropology, I have discovered the forest giants are really an evolved nature people who migrated to Earth with the help of friendly star people millions of years ago. So as you can see, it's very strange stuff. But if this is your sort of thing, check out my link. I think it's fatemag.com or something like that is the website. And they're still publishing. The cover price on this one was $6. There's the website address. And you might find something of interest here. This one was 2015 is when this most recent one that I have came out, so quite a few years ago. But as far as I know, they're still being published. And anyway, if you're interested in the supernatural, it's worth checking out. Thanks for watching.